Sayın Bakanım, kıymetli konuklar.
Distinguished Minister, distinguished guests, welcome. Distinguished Minister, I'd like to thank you once again because you empower us. It is the centennial of Turkey and it is the century of wind. This is the second day of TWEC 2023. You have honored us with your presence. The Congress started yesterday and hosted by the Istanbul Development Agency. This Congress is held for the 12th time, and it grabbed a great deal of attention. And let me put it this way. The Congress brought together more than 4,000 industry representatives. So thank you so much for your interest in the Congress. Distinguished Minister, dear guests, let's celebrate the centennial of the proclamation of the Republic of Turkey because we feel the same excitement each time. So with such emotions, now that we have the minister with us, happy centennial. Now, before we start the second day, I invite you to a minute of silence followed by the national anthem to commemorate Gazi Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and his companion in arms.
Söylemeye davet ediyoruz. Teşekkür ediyoruz Sayın.
Thank you, distinguished minister, dear guests. Last year after Izmir, we are gathered in Istanbul as we celebrate the centennial of the Republic. We have the motto saying, century of doing. Yesterday we had 7 sessions and with a great interest we completed the first day. It is a long process, but those who embarked the journey early made their industries more competitive, and they have gone a long way. So today is the day that we'll have the opportunity to talk about A to Z of this sector. We know that wind is the underlying strength that makes us a strong partner of Europe. Today, we will hold 24 sessions and surely bringing together the decision makers. TWEC will have the opening with the address of Mr. Minister. Let me share a couple of figures for you. So we're bringing industries together. We're bringing companies together so that we can have brainstorming sessions, so that we can find holistic solutions. And there will also be B2B meetings to pave the way for future cooperations. After this session, you will see the experience hall, and you will also see booths of companies sponsoring and supporting the event. Let me share a couple of further details. If you need Wi-Fi, find TWEC 2023 network and type areas as a password, so then you'll be connected. So as you know, development agencies, general directorates focus on the use of clean energy, reduce the consumption, energy efficiency, reducing and preventing waste, and also generating environmentally friendly solutions to support industries. They are coming up with various designs, and with the hosting of Istanbul Development Agency, here we are today enjoying this congress. They've provided various grants and incentives, so with sincere thanks, now I invite the Secretary General Erkan Tüzgen of Istanbul Development Agency for his opening remarks.
Sayın Bakanım, saygı
Distinguished Minister, distinguished Deputy Minister, distinguished executives of related ministries, President of TWEC, participants, ladies and gentlemen, I salute you with my most heartfelt emotions.
öncelikle İstanbul Kalkınma Ajansı olarak
As Istanbul Development Agency, we are here to host the TWEC for the 12th time, and we are more than happy and honored to be the host of this great congress. Let me start my remarks, as I always do in the last month. I'd like to commemorate and pay my tribute to Gaza. I condemn the violence in Gaza. I condemn the attacks of Israel on Gaza that looks like a genocide. Please do boycott your whatever products you're using, the institutions and everything. And let me state that we are against any violence in Gaza, in all across the globe, and I pray Allah Almighty for seeing the end of violence.
olarak görüyorum.
I see public institutions as entrepreneurs, as the innovation leaders, and as development agency, we always support innovation. And our efforts run around an approach of, ecosystem. Ecosystem requires awareness, raising awareness, creating that ecosystem, and empowering the ecosystem.
7'den 70'e tüm toplumun enerji
From A to Z, we want to make sure that the public is informed about energy. We want to make sure that they know how to save and they know how to be efficient. But we also want to reach out to all institutions, the public side, private sector, and we want to raise the perception and awareness. And then, of course, we need to see the formation of related companies, we need to see the formation of necessary networks, and we always support. But then, of course, we need quality, and if there are any gaps and shortcomings, we will always be there to fulfill them, to overcome them. In coordination with related ministries, we supported more than 300 projects for innovation. Distinguished ministers, distinguished guests, our works surrounding wind energy actually bears the same attitude. We always prioritize ecosystem, and let me emphasize that we think Istanbul has a great potential for the wind, and locally produced turbines, the blades, and all related industry products should compete on a global arena. So together with TÜREP, we're working to host Win Europe here in Turkey as well. We had the due diligence, we're preparing a roadmap, and early next year we'll be announcing all the results. And the fact that TWEC 2023 is hosted in Istanbul makes us more than happy because we've offered a great deal of support. I don't want to keep it too long. Thank you so much for your participants and your attention. And in the future, we will continue to do whatever it takes. We'll take every necessary step to support our country in energy, but especially in wind. Thank you,
Tanıtıcı konuşması için teşekkür ediyoruz.
Mr. Tizgan, for your address.
Mühendislik hakkında şimdi konuşmak üzere.
Now, I'd like to invite the president of Turkish Wind Energy Union, Ibrahim Erdan. Distinguished Minister, distinguished representatives of public and private sector, dear members of the press, dear guests. The Congress started yesterday with great excitement, and this excitement still continues, and welcome to the second day. Yesterday, during the inauguration, I stated that this is not just a Congress, but it is also a great platform for the young minds. It is a great opportunity to bring together suppliers and vendors. It is a perfect place to focus on wind and all the latest trends, and we're having series of events, side events. Mr. Minister is here because together with Win Europe, we had this Turkish opening day, and I once again welcome him. As I stated yesterday, this Congress coincided with the centennial of the Republic. And we believe in the huge potential of wind here in Turkey. Of course, we have to support the wind energy, and that is why we selected the motto as the Century of the Wind. And as we were planning for the Congress, we received a great support from Istanbul Development Agency, and I thank them before you once again. In TWEC, well, the Congress registration hit record hard. Last year, compared to the previous year, the registration was again a record. Last year's registration was hovering around 2,400, but this year registrations went beyond 4,000, and we are more than proud. And we hope that this increase in interest will continue to rise. Ministry of Industry and Technology, whose support we always seek, but also the Istanbul Development Agency and all other development agencies also offered a great deal of support. So in the presence of Mr. Minister, in the presence of executives, I'd like to thank all efforts on behalf of all industry stakeholders. With the opportunity, I once again celebrate the centennial of the Republic, and I commemorate our martyrs and the founding father, Gazi Mustafa Kemal Atatürk.
Sayın Bakanımızla geçtiğimiz yıl pek çok etkinlik vesilesiyle bir araya gelme fırsatı bulduk.
We had the opportunity to get together with the minister through various events, and as a Turkish wind sector, he joined Hamburg Wind event, and it was literally like a conquest, and he never refrained his support. And seeing such a support is more than valuable, because such a developed industry could only be brought forward with that level of support. During opening remarks, I shared a couple of figures with you, but let me remind you one other detail. 15 years ago, the installed capacity was below 1,000 megawatts. It was hovering around 500 to 600. It was like ground zero for us, but now we're looking at an installed capacity of more than 12,000 megawatts. And also the Turkish wind industry never had a facility, never had any farms, but now we're looking at tens of factories, hundreds of facilities, totaling up to 200 billions of turnover and billions worth of export. So now we're looking at a huge industry, but it wasn't easy to get where we are today. It required determination, meticulous planning, transformation, purchase securities, and local production, and also the related incentives brought us where we are today. We are aware of the reality, and we know that further regulations and modifications are essential to support the development of our industries. After various incentives, when we look at the picture, we see that we rank 16th globally and 6th in Europe. And in industry, since we've developed this far, we rank number 5th in terms of the size of the industry. I do not want to repeat myself, but as you know through participating or checking social media, let me remind you what we did in the European Parliament. We had a presentation there and we shared some figures, and I want to remind you of those figures. I hope you will enjoy seeing those figures once again.
Sunumun başlangıcında
So,
aslında bundan
at the
sonraki
beginning of the
operasyonun da
presentation,
çok önemli olduğunu,
I want
son 3
to
senede
reflect
geçtiğimiz
how we
süreç
got here and what the potential is. Of course, we're experiencing Russia-Ukraine war that also brought about both an economic crisis and a supply crisis. When we say economic crisis, we know that electricity prices or natural gas prices skyrocketed, but
şunu yaşattı.
an economic crisis pushed us through the rise of price hikes, and
En yüksek
it
noktasında
jumped
Rusya,
to
Almanya
8 times higher when, remember when Russia and Germany
gördüğü noktaya kadar.
and the pipelines between those countries were harmed. And after that,
Yatırımlar,
the investments for supply chain or the
ve tedarik zincirindeki sorunlar olumlu
corporations, of course, yielded positive results. But even now, electricity prices in Europe or all related natural gas or raw material prices
en yüksek olduğu noktaya kıyasladığımızda
are still high compared to the peak times of the crisis, and it's still twice the amount compared to COVID times. So, yes, the effects of the economic crisis are still there, though diminishing, but this is the latest picture. And of course, supply chain turned to be a hot topic because there were severe disruptions. And let me remind you, oh, sorry.
birincisi lojistik
So what were those disruptions? Logistics issues. From Far East to Europe, there were important disruptions. Prices fluctuated. Remember, container costs were hovering around $1,500. Then it skyrocketed to $15,000 to $20,000. Disruptions also brought about disruptions in production of factories. So that is why the equipment prices in Europe also fluctuate. It is still quite volatile, and the prices started to climb up again. So you're looking at 2019 figures, and until that year in wind industry, turbine prices were 1.5 million. It dropped to approximately $1 million, but because of the latest supply issues, after 2019 started to climb up again, and that climb still continues. This pushed us to think for alternatives, and we questioned whether what was going on in solar would affect wind too. What happened in solar energy? Until 2010, in solar energy, Europe, but especially Germany, and as equipment producers, countries like Switzerland or Italy were under a heavy weight as a result of these disruptions. And in 2019, the Europe brought itself
2050'de
to
50-60'lardayken şu anda Avrupa
10% in terms of solar
rüzgar
capacity.
sanayinin
But what is the
%10
reality
için büyük
in
problemler
wind?
devam ederse
Disruptions in
rüzgarda
wind. If
devamlı
they
görüyoruz.
continue,
Ağırlıklı
then
ortalama olarak bahsedeyim sizler ekranda komponent bazında uzak doğu ve
in
Avrupa'nın
terms of
ağırlığını görüyoruz.
components, you
%60
see that
seviyesinde.
the difference is
Dolayısıyla
around
Avrupa'da bu tedarik
60%,
zincirinde
meaning
mekanizmalardaki sürdürülebilirliğin
if
doğru bir şekilde planlanması gerekiyor.
meaning sustainability and
Rüzgar
investments should be
sanayinin
meticulously
Avrupa'dan
planned
bağımsız.
in Istanbul, in
Ülkemizin rüzgar
Europe.
sanayinde beraber
So
büyüdüğü rüzgar sanayi
our
eskiden bir
growing and
şekilde
developing
küçülmesinin
wind
de gaspısı.
industry
Dolayısıyla Avrupa Birliği'nin bu yönde
uh, won't go any
yaptığı düzenlemelerde, Avrupa'da
stagnation
yaptığı düzenlemelere ne
or
kadar sahip
any
çıkıyor?
shrinkage.
Malum
Surely we're
bu
keeping up with
rüzgarlı
the
santrallerden
latest Wind Europe,
rüzgar ve güneş
wind
üretim gücünde hem
special
sanayide
attempts,
özel hedefler ve özel teşvik mekanizmaları ortaya koydu ve
targets
buna
and
göre
projects to
bütün
increase
yapımızı
installed
değiştirmeye,
capacity are
geliştirmeye
there.
başladık.
And of
Bu
course, it pushed us to do
gelişmeler
a lot more.
olurken Avrupa'da 2030 yılı için özel
And
hedefler
as
konmaya başladı. Geçmişte
all of that
hatırlarsanız
happened,
2050 yılı
came
için
2030 targets in
2020'de
Europe. As you remember, Europe's target was to reach 20% by 2020 in terms of renewables. Then they changed to 30%, but thanks to repower and with all the regulations and arrangements, their new target is 45%. So they want the share of wind and solar to hit 45%. But how was that reflected in
30 gigawatt rüzgar
wind?
gücü var.
Europe's installed capacity is 230 gigawatts, but with the latest arrangements and targets, it is projected to reach 55 gigawatts, meaning
30 gigawattın
30 gigawatts of installments annually. And I'm sure you can calculate, you can project the cost. It means 30 to 45 billion euros worth of investment each year. So looking at the Turkish industry today,
çok daha yükseltilecek noktada.
we know
Öte
that the
yandan Türkiye'ye bakalım.
potential for further
Türkiye
development
son
is
15 yılda
huge. But
az önce
what have we
bahsettiğim
done?
gibi
In the last 15
5-6
years,
megawattlardan 12 bin megawatt aşağı
we increased our mechanical installed capacity to 12,000 from just a mere 1,000 megawatts. The towers and then the blades, generators,
dışındaki pek çok
but
hastaneye
also
binlerce tesis ortaya çıktı.
components.
Türkiye bazında
Now
sağlanan
we have
projeler
hundreds of facilities that can produce all those blades and generators and equipments. We have 7 factories, 4 towers. We have 4 blade factories,
civata ve diğer ekipman üreten,
paints,
Almanya'da
bolts,
armalı üreten yüzlerce
other
tesis
components.
var.
Now we have hundreds of industrial facilities that can produce all those that I just mentioned.
Bundan sonra
We rank number 5, I said,
hem dediğimiz
but
gibi Avrupa'da
we will continue to invest and develop in both onshore and offshore. We want to do a lot more. We want to develop more so that the shipyard business in Turkey can be supported as well. And shipyard business is ready
tersanecilik
to
sektörü şu an
develop.
Avrupa'nın 6. büyük
We rank number 6 in
sıralamada
shipyard business and in shipbuilding. So ranking or the strength is similar, both in shipbuilding and in wind. So what lies ahead for Turkey? I just told you about Europe's targets.
yatırım ihtiyacı.
They're gonna need to invest 30 to 45 billion euros worth of investment. But of course, they have to build further capacity. But it would also require further licenses.
Kapasite artışı, mevcut santrallerimizin kapasite artışı.
And of course, we'll also focus on building the capacity of already installed facilities. We will have YECA projects, and we will also have 19,000 megawatts worth of storage facilities. We will have the licenses and the required allocations, so it totals to 37,000 megawatts of onshore projects. But also, we have 5,000 megawatts offshore projects as well. They will all result in 2030, 2040 targets
500 megawattlık kurulumla 3
with
milyar
an
dolar
annual
civarında sanayi ve imalatı
2,500
planlamayı hedefliyor.
megawatts of
Tabii bu listede
capacity
savaşımız
building,
sadece karada
we can develop our
olmadığı için
industries
karasal
furthermore. And we're
yüklenemeyecek
not just
kaynaklarda
focusing on
deniz
onshore,
üstünde
not
üretim
just on offshore.
imkanatı,
We will also focus on
tersaneli
equipment production. We will also focus on shipyards or shipbuilding side
gemi inşaat
as well.
ve özel
We will
ekipman
also
inşaatı,
support
ayrıca
shipbuilding,
özellikle toplama
equipment production.
tesislerle
We
beraber
will support
toplam sıcak
storage
ve ateş
facilities,
teçhimatı ve
and
depolama imalatı
these
etkinlikleri
targets
ortada.
can bring us to our target of 37 megawatts of installed capacity.
Karşımızda çok büyük bir fırsat var.
So the potential and the opportunity here is
Bu
huge.
fırsat dünyanın deneyimlediği tedarik zinciri problemleri bir yana, Avrupa'nın da kendi
Putting aside the supply chain
kapasitesine cevap vermesi.
disruptions, what we need to do is to come up with solutions that can answer, that can meet the need of those of the supply side. And after all that has happened, we realized that
Triple win olarak
the
tanımlıyoruz.
possible cooperations will bring us triple win.
Yani rüzgarla beraber
And
kazan ve 3
we can
alanı
call
kazanmayı
this win with win, win
beraber
in three
bir
corners.
sanayi
So
kapasitesi
together,
oluşturmak,
we can create an
beraber
industry
arz
capacity.
güvenliğini
Together, we can
güvenliğini,
provide
ulusal arz güvenliğini
supply
çerçevesinde
security.
karşılamak ve yenilenebilir
And
enerji
together,
odaklı
we can
hedefleri
have
hayal
renewable
Son tüketicilerin
focused
enerji
investments so that we
maliyetlerini
can reach
beraber
out to end
aşağı
customers,
çekmek.
so that we can
Dolayısıyla 3 alanda
reduce the
beraber
cost
kazanacağımız
for end
çok
customers. So
güçlü
this is
bir
a
stratejik
great
fırsat.
strategy, and this is such a
Bugün
strategic
hesaba
opportunity
değerlendiriyoruz.
to have the
Bizleri
triple
sonuna
win.
kadar
I hope we can
Avrupa
seize
Birliği
the
ve
opportunity
Avrupa
because it will not
Birliği
only benefit us, but it will also benefit
önemli.
Europe and its related industries as well.
Bu vesileyle dün Sayın Enerji Bakanımıza, Meclis Komisyon Başkanımıza,
Yesterday, we
Bakan
heard the
Başkanımıza
remarks of
arz ettiğimiz
Mr.
gibi
Minister,
tüm bu büyük
Mr.
yatırımları
Head of the
hayata geçirebilmemiz
Assembly of the Turkish
yani
Republic.
nükleer santraller 43.000
It is
megawatt
critical that we realize these projects. If we have set ambitious targets, then we would need facilities and we would need the capacity. So in order to make these investments, we would refer to previous experiences. We must find ways to overcome the obstacles lying before us. But thanks to the incentives coming from related ministries, we can overcome, but we need their support. That is why I am emphasizing the need of support as well. Incentives are great. I mean, they're coming from the ministry side since last year. İmar-TED, forestry, natural assets, these areas need improvements as well, but also land allocation, which is partially under the control of our ministries. Allocating forests sometimes delay, I mean, the bureaucracy in these fronts sometimes delay investments, and it sometimes disrupts the benefits of investments. But having an active, open, transparent dialogue will help us overcome those barriers standing in front of the crucial investments I just referred to. Another important issue that we always discuss with every chance, and that is the financing in industry. We need support on that front as well. After macro assessments, let me also reflect to you the micro expectations coming from the industry side. In order to develop the industry, in order to increase the production side, we need to do a lot more because it'll bring about a competitive edge. Support for export loans would help the competitiveness of our export means, but also local component production will help us overcome the challenges that our facilities and the plants are facing. Both the support coming from Ministry of Industry and Trade can again help us overcome these issues. So as I am about to end my remarks, I once again commemorate and express my heartfelt gratitude to our founding father, Gazi Mustafa Kemal, and his companions in arms. I also thank our industry stakeholders. I once again celebrate the centennial of the Republic of Turkey, and I also thank and congratulate the organizing team and our board, and I'd like to thank Mr. Minister and his delegation. I express my most heartfelt emotions, and I thank you, all participants, for your attention, and I wish a successful and a fruitful second day in the Congress.
We would like to thank Mr. Ibrahim Erdem, the president of TWEC, for his speech. Actually, in yesterday's sessions, he was with us and he delivered a speech to inspire us. I would like to invite Mr. Giles Dixon, the CEO of Wind Europe.
Minister, Deputy Minister, Ministry officials, ladies and gentlemen, Günaydın, çok memnun oldum. I'm going to show you a map of Europe, which shows all of the factories that produce wind turbines and components for wind turbines. It's on the Wind Europe website. You can click on each circle and a window opens up with detail about each individual factory. There are over 250 of them. That is Europe's wind energy supply chain. Let's zoom in on Turkey. Well done. And thank you for the fantastic contribution that these factories make to the expansion of wind energy in the rest of Europe. Thank you, Minister, Deputy Minister, for everything you do to support this supply chain and to drive forward its expansion. You have fantastic plans. I'm especially excited by your plans for the port of Chandali, port investment, and this project for 1 million square meters of manufacturing facilities for wind energy. This is fantastic. Thank you and well done. Now, this supply chain looks impressive, but it is not big enough. Europe wants to double the rate at which it builds new wind farms. Even these factories are not enough for that. We need more. Europe is now setting a legally binding target. Every year, the EU must be able to manufacture 36 gigawatts of wind turbines. Today, we are some way below that. The European Union knows things need to change. We need to drive investments in more factories. And to that end, the President of the European Commission has published a wind power package with a whole host of measures and actions to drive these investments in the expansion of Europe's wind energy supply chain. There will be new grants from the European Commission to support factory investments, new loans from the European Investment Bank. There's a clear message from the EU to national governments. When you do your wind auctions, you must fully reflect today's costs of making wind turbines. You must fully index your auction prices. There's a requirement now on all countries in Europe that they must fully digitalize their permitting processes. We can't carry on trying to issue permits for 30 gigawatts of wind farms every year, all on paper. To that end, by the way, Wind Europe and Amazon Web Services have developed a new software tool called Easy Permits, which will speed up the permitting of new wind farms onshore and offshore. This software is already being deployed in municipal authorities in Denmark and in Poland, and the feedback from the case handlers, the local civil servants who deal with permit applications day to day, is we can now issue 3 times as many permits per month as we used to be able to. That is the impact of digital permitting. Can I make one observation on permitting here in Turkey? I understand that there is a plan that to get a license for a new onshore wind farm now, you're going to have to say to the permitting authorities, not only am I going to build, let us say, 50 megawatts of wind turbines, but I'm also going to have to build 50 megawatts of storage capacity. There's no other country in the world that does this. Nobody. Sure, wind is variable. Yes, we need to invest in storage. But to integrate variable wind and solar in the energy system, you do a whole range of things, not just investing in storage. You invest in demand response, demand-side management, grid interconnectors, smart grid. You make sure the wind turbines are more flexible. They can be ramped up and ramped down more quickly. We've made huge advances in all of that. But nobody anywhere has this idea that for every 1 unit of wind energy, we need 1 unit of storage. Even in China, which has a huge battery industry that they want to support, of course, I think the rule is if you build 100 megawatts of wind, then we want you to have 20 megawatts of storage. Certainly nobody else in Europe has anything like your 1-to-1. I understand discussions are ongoing between the government and the regulator about this. Minister, Deputy Minister, officials, I really hope common sense can apply here. Now back to the wind power package. As well as the direct financial support for new factories, the European Union is determined that there should be a level playing field between the European wind energy industry and its non-European competitors. They want all the new wind farms in Europe to be made in Europe. And note, this is made in Europe. Nobody is saying made in the EU. Everybody in Brussels and elsewhere in Europe is very clear about the huge contribution that this makes to the expansion of wind energy in Europe. The Turkish wind supply chain is part of the European wind energy supply chain. Now, how do you ensure a level playing field with our non-European competitors? Well, first, the EU wants to raise the bar on what sort of wind turbines can be built. They must comply with global environmental standards. They must give guarantees on cybersecurity. They must comply with data residency. The data from those sensors on the turbines must be stored and analyzed only in Europe. It shouldn't be going to the far side of Asia. At the same time, the European Commission has said it's going to be very vigilant on unfair competition, where turbines are offered by our competitors at very low prices and with financing terms like 3 years deferred payment, which we are not allowed to offer, of course, being OECD countries. Where there are unfairly subsidized practices, the European Commission will not hesitate to take action, and it has many tools at its disposal. It can take anti-subsidy measures. It has a new law, the Foreign Subsidies Regulation, which allows it to act against unfairly subsidized factory investments in Europe. We all know that some of our non-European competitors are looking to build factories in Europe, in Turkey as well. Fine, if it's fair competition, okay. But maybe those factory investments will be unfairly subsidized. And let us remember this. Even where we have fair competition with our non-European competitors, there are three other things we need to consider. First, energy security. We've just come out of a foolish over-dependency on Russian gas. Let us not go into an increased dependency on Chinese renewable energy equipment. That is bad for our collective energy security. Then there's our wider security. All those sensors and all that data that's linked to all the other assets in our energy system. Do we want that data going to the far side of Asia? And then there are the economic considerations. Every time we build a new wind turbine in Europe, provided it's been made in Europe, Turkey, that generates on average 13 million euros of economic activity. That brings benefits to our citizens, our communities. It brings them jobs and investments. Those benefits should stay here. They shouldn't be going to the other side of the world. And that's the expectation that our citizens have, not least when they see all of these wind farms being built around them. So, this wind power package is going to drive change in all of these areas. And this has to happen quickly. There is an urgency about the expansion of Europe's wind energy supply chain. Let me give you some examples. That's how many offshore wind turbines we can make a year in wider Europe today. By 2027, we need to be making that number. That's just the turbines. What about the foundations for those offshore turbines? Today, we can make that many every year. We need to be making that many. And then the cables that will connect the offshore wind farms to the grid. That's how many we can make a year today. We need to be making that number. To be fair, the cable manufacturers are all expanding their existing factories across Europe. They're giving us a great lead. They're showing us the urgency with which we need to move. And to reflect that urgency, the European Commission is now asking EU member states by the end of this calendar year, by the end of next month, to sign a wind energy charter in which they, the national governments, will say, yes, we see the wind power package, we are committed to take the actions in that package that you have asked us to take in all of these areas that I have described, because this is urgent. Minister, Deputy Minister, officials, ladies and gentlemen, there is no time to lose. Thank you.
Sir. Mr. Dixon, thanks for your fruitful speech and sharing Europe and Turkey for the deepest feedback informations. Thank you. Giles Dixon'a teşekkür ediyoruz derinlemesine geri bildirimleri için.
Thank you, Mr. Giles Dixon, for all this feedback. Distinguished guests,
Son derece dinamik bu sektörü yakinen takip
our minister follows this industry very closely and in a dynamic way. Mr. Mehmet Fatih Kacır will take the floor now for his address. You have the floor, Mr. Minister. Esteemed representatives of our public authorities, academia, and the business world, dear members of the wind energy ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen, dear young people, it's a great pleasure to be with you at the 12th Turkey Wind Energy Congress, which will ensure that our country becomes a stronger player in renewable energy technologies, which is critical for us to achieve our 2053 net zero emission targets, which will contribute to the breakthroughs we have made with the vision of the national technology move. I greet you all with my best regards. Turkish wind energy industry, which started its adventure with the first domestically produced blade in 2002. Today, we are employing approximately 25,000 people directly. Today, in this industry, we have an annual turnover of 1.5 billion euros, and it has become a giant industry that exports 3 out of every 4 products produced to more than 52 countries. Yesterday and today we will be discussing the latest developments in the wind energy sector together with our local and foreign stakeholders. We will bring together the representatives of the public authorities with the representatives of the private sector, and we have very competent panels here to discuss all these issues. And all together we will be discussing and building up the future projections. We have participants from different parts of our country and all over the world, so it's a great cooperation platform. And I hope that this platform will be beneficial for everyone in our country and in the globe. Distinguished guests, we are going through a period where countries are competing in investment and manufacturing in green energy technologies. There is a fierce competition in many areas, such as battery technologies, solar, hydrogen, and wind energy technologies. Wind energy has a significant share among renewable energy sources. Last year, wind energy capacity worldwide grew by 9% and reached 906 gigawatts, and it is expected that it will exceed 2 terawatts in 2030. We too want to benefit from wind energy on a global scale. We want to evaluate the wind energy potential of our country in terms of its geographical location and climate characteristics. As the country, we want to achieve our 2053 net zero emission target by investing in clean energy projects. Therefore, we attach great importance to wind energy, just like other green energy technologies, in order to make our country fully independent in energy through sustainable and renewable energy projects. We continue our work along with the industry to make our country a regional wind energy equipment production base and hub. In wind energy technologies, we support all our entrepreneurs, researchers, investors, and industry through various mechanisms. As our ministry, so far, within the scope of our incentive system, we have issued a total of 388 incentive certificates for wind power plant investments to date. In this context, we paved the way for fixed investments exceeding 233 billion Turkish lira. Along with these investments, we have realized an investment of 8 billion Turkish lira with a total of 53 incentive certificates for turbine tower, machinery, connection equipment, manufacturing investments. And within the scope of TWEC support and scholarship programs, we provided a total of 405 million Turkish lira of direct support to 118 projects in the field of wind energy technologies. With the Wind Electrical Power Monitoring and Forecasting System project, which we call it RHYTHM, we are carrying out this project with TÜBİTAK. We have gained the ability to instantly monitor all wind power plants in our country and dynamically present production forecasts to system operators. As the Ministry of Industry and Technology, we implemented the technology-focused Industrial Move program in order to increase value-added production. Within the scope of the program, we paved the way for an investment with a budget of 425 million lira by supporting a project that enables the connection equipment used in wind turbines to be produced with domestic and national resources using advanced casting technology. Our development agencies in their respective regions are carrying out onshore and offshore wind energy feasibility studies and carrying out training, roadmaps and cluster projects for the sector. To date, with development agencies, we provided 575 million Turkish lira finance to 158 projects carried out in the field of wind energy. We have provided approximately 1.5 billion Turkish lira of support to our initiatives in our technoparks and R&D activities. There are 25 R&D and design centers in the field of wind energy in our country, and along with these corporate supports, we provided financial support of more than 13 million Turkish lira to 76 SMEs that manufacture wind energy equipment and included them in the supply chain. In addition to large components such as towers, blades and generators, we managed to produce tower internal components and connection equipment locally. In this context, our locality rate has exceeded 60%. Of course, I'd like to specifically highlight that we will not be satisfied with this success. We attach importance to improving the competences of our producers in domestic wind energy, especially in offshore wind turbines, and creating a strong supply network in the sector. We will establish new industrial zones that will accelerate the development of our sector and realize the Chandarlı port, which will activate the export potential together with our Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure. We will launch our national wind turbine brand, which will further advance our country's current position in wind energy equipment production. We have supported investors who add value to our country and R&D projects that produce added value. So briefly speaking, everyone who has done their best so far, and we will continue to support them. Dear guests, our country, under the leadership of our President, His Excellency Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, will be one of the top 10 economies in the world in terms of investment, manufacturing, employment and export. We can realize this claim by strengthening our independence in energy. Creating resource diversity in the field of renewable energy plays a key role in our energy independence. To the same, we have taken important steps to make the best use of both onshore and offshore wind potential of our country. In 2002, our wind energy installed capacity was only 19 megawatts. Now we are ranked 12th in the world and 5th in Europe with 12 gigawatts of wind power. We provide approximately 11% of our country's electricity need from wind, with more than 4,000 turbines in 280 power plants that we have built together with more than 100 local and foreign investors. We will achieve our 2053 net zero emission targets with the breakthroughs we have made and planned in the field of wind energy. We will take firm steps towards becoming independent day by day in the energy sector, the heart of the manufacture. Together with you, our valuable industry, business people and entrepreneurs, in line with our goal of technology producing strong Turkey, we are fully determined to make our country's industry the driving force of the Turkish century with the national technology move. And as one of the most important suppliers in Europe, in the 8 years to come, the installed capacity in Europe will be increasing from 250 to 500. This is going to create a huge contribution to the export of our country, which is mainly coming from our industry. Before I conclude my words, I'd like to thank the Turkish Wind Energy Association and Istanbul Development Agency and all our stakeholders who contributed. I would also like to thank you for including our students and youth in such a valuable event so that they can plan a successful career in the sector. I hope the 12th Turkish Wind Energy Congress will be useful to our country. Best wishes. Thank you. We would like to thank Mr. Mehmet Fatih Kacır, our Minister of Industry and Technology, for his address. Mr. Minister, I kindly ask you to stay on the stage because we have a very short ceremony for presentation of the plaques.
TÜREP Başkanımız Sayın İbrahim Erden'i
I also would like to invite Mr. Ibrahim Erden, the President of TÜREP. The President of TÜREP, Ibrahim Bey, will be presenting this gift to our Minister as a token of memory of the day. Mr. Minister, please kindly stay on the stage. Mr. Giles Dixon, the CEO of Wind Europe. Mr. Dixon made great contribution.
Mr. Giles Dixon, and for your fruitful speeches. Thank you for your collaboration. Thank you, Mr. Giles Dixon. Ve hemen akabinde tabii ki bir fotoğraf çekimimiz olacak.
Now we will have a photo session. We would like to invite the Deputy Ministers of Industry and Technology, our Director General of Industry, our Director General of Industrial Zones. I would like to invite the Secretary General of Istanbul Development Agency, the Secretary General of TÜREP, and the Vice Presidents of TÜREP. We will take a family photo.
Sanayi ve Teknoloji Bakanımız Sayın Mehmet Fatih Kacır'a
We would like to thank His Excellency Minister, and we say goodbye to our Minister. Distinguished guests, the next session will start very shortly, and the session will be about acceleration of the investment processes and recent developments in the wind energy sector. Thank you. We will start the session very shortly.